This episode of the Three Body Problem is sponsored by ThreatLocker. Let's be real, most cybersecurity tools only act after the damage is done. Detection is reactive. Prevention is what actually changes the game. That's where ThreatLocker comes in. Instead of chasing threats, ThreatLocker helps organizations stop them at the source before they ever run. Only approved applications, scripts, and executables are allowed. Everything else? Denied by default. It's zero trust made practical and scalable for modern environments. Learn more at threatlocker.com/threebodyproblem and see how default deny can finally give you real control over your environment.
It's not the American style degrees.
So 6 degrees Celsius in real temperature is what?
The fuck does that mean?
It's
Exactly.
like real degrees. I don't know.
Real
Good
degree.
morning,
Not
everyone.
fake degrees.
Good
Don't bring
morning,
people
everyone.
into this shit.
This is episode 76 of the Three Body Problem on December 12th, 2025. By the way, happy birthday to my dad, who has never listened to this show and will never hear
shit.
this. But today's his
Happy
birthday, and
birthday.
happy birthday to
Happy
my dad.
birthday.
How old is he?
I forgot. I don't know exactly. 70s, late 70s, something. It's okay.
Many more.
Three Body Problem, sponsored by our friends at ThreatLocker. Juanito, how's life in Washington, D.C.?
Cold as fuck. But it's good, man. Just settling, house buying stuff. Hopefully
Nice.
moving to a new studio soon here with proper lighting.
Three Body Problem upgraded into the new place.
Yeah, exactly. We'll host our next meetups there. But
Costin, it's also wintertime out there in Romania.
Yeah, man. It's foggy and cold, a bit wet. I mean, the cats, they typically go out on the balcony in the morning, but this morning they were like, we don't need this shit. Like, keep the balcony to yourself. It's just wet, and there's like these little worms, like about this size, which are green and slimy. And like my cats, they eat everything, like mosquitoes, but they don't touch this thing. Is like they're like, no, thank you, sir, no.
disgusting.
Upset.
Aye.
How's the protesting? Y'all having some fun over there?
You wanna
yes,
you wanna
there's-
go there?
You're really gonna miss we've done so much, like we have fucking watched the evolution of Romania's bureaucracy and democracy ostensibly for the past year, and you're not gonna tell us that shit's going down.
Yeah, I mean, on just like briefly to summarize what's been going on, I think it's been a couple of days since a documentary dropped about the corruption in the justice system, and it's
Romanian documentary in Romanian language, or is it in English?
It is no, it's in Romanian language, but I think YouTube has subtitles in English, like auto translated, because a number of my friends they watched this documentary. It's really, in my opinion, it's really worth watching, even if you're not Romanian, because it tells you, it shows you methods which I believe they work anywhere in the world. Like anyone can use the same system to cheat the law pretty much anywhere in the world. It's all legal. I mean, there's been a number of follow-ups from the people who, let's say, they're accused in this documentary of twisting the legal system, and they're like, guys, this is legal. Like, you can't touch us. Like, what are we talking about? People are protesting. Like, what are your answers to this issue? And they're like, we've done everything according to the law and internal regulations. So, like, can't touch us. Like,
Wow. You can't break the
Can't
law
touch
if
it.
you're going by the law. Well, I got Conspiracy Ryan got a couple of questions right off the bat. Like, who made the documentary?
Oh, that's a heavy one. Well, I
asked
first of all, I
because-
think
I
it doesn't
asked
matter.
because-
It doesn't matter. It
well,
really
I
well,
think
I
it
mean-
doesn't matter.
Well, let me ask the question this way. You guys have been dealing with this disinformation, misinformation, kind of mind control issues around your elections for the last year. We've covered this on the podcast since episode 1, I believe. We started episode 1 when your
People have
elections
learned
got
more
annulled.
about Romania on this fucking podcast than they've
Yes.
ever heard before in their entire lives.
Does this feel like that kind of created documentary narrative? Even though the content might be accurate and everything might be true? Do you feel you're being played? That's the question.
Well, there's one thing which Kim Zetter, shout outs to Kim Zetter, and her awesome books. Not like a reminder, she didn't write just one book; she wrote several books, and they're all like absolutely awesome.
Are we adding it to the book club?
One thing that Kim Zetter told us, if you remember her speech a couple of years ago, is that everyone has an agenda. Doesn't matter like if it's a good agenda, bad agenda, but everybody, they have an agenda. If you ask me who has an agenda to release this documentary, I think that probably somebody, because there's a couple of things here. One, that as soon as the documentary was released, the national television announced they're going to broadcast this documentary at 9 p.m., like, maximum audience. It's a 2 hours documentary, and they said, like, we're going to broadcast it. And this has never happened before. And the Romanian television, national television, won't broadcast a YouTube documentary, I think, unless, there was enough support for that to happen, like at the very highest levels. And I guess there's a bunch of people at the highest level who are just tired with the corruption, with all these collusions between judges, politicians. To give you an example from the documentary, there's one politician who was eventually indicted, and he was supposed to go to jail for 11 years and pay something like $10 million back to the state that he actually took in bribes. Most of it documented with interceptions, recordings, audio recordings, and everything.
Interceptions? So it's law enforcement, like intelligence and law enforcement are involved.
Absolutely. And the most amazing thing is that one of these interceptions in which he talks to somebody else, he's actually whispering. And you know that microphones, they don't usually pick up these whispers. And I don't know how it was recorded. So they actually caught up these whispers, but it was like it's an amazing thing. And they have it in the documentary, and many people wonder, where did they get this recording? Because it's not public. And there's a few other things, but like basically this guy, he had 150 trial, postponings. His trial was postponed 150 times until the corruption charges, they were like prescribed, if that's a word in English. They're just like 10 years afterwards, they don't exist anymore.
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations, correct. So they delayed his trial 150 times until the statute of limitations was reached, and he's like innocent. Okay, that was wiped out, and like no jail time, and he was supposed to return a few million euros, like 3-4 million euros. But one of the tribunals, which is apparently part of the scheme, they decided that he's innocent, so he doesn't need to return anything. So he's good.
So the airing of this documentary triggered a bunch of protests across the country. Like, what's happening now? What's the outcome?
So a couple of people, they took the streets to ask for a fair justice system, and
that's ambitious.
That's ambitious, but it's happened before in Romania when politicians they tried to change the law so that corruption is not a crime anymore. If it's less than 100,000 euros, then it's not a crime.
That's some ballsy shit.
And they tried to pass it like on a Friday evening, things like that, and people just they didn't want to take it any longer. So it's happening once again. People just demand some kind of answers, like what's going on, why all these crazy collusions between politicians and some judges, because like not all the judges are like that, and a few very brave souls actually spoke against it. And one of the entities involved in this case is they tried to excuse themselves, kind of launder the whole thingy, and they did a press conference, and during the press conference in which they brought up some kind of a compromat style files on the whistleblowers, essentially, somebody just walks up there to the microphone and says, I want to say something, and they're like, okay. And this super brave judge, she says, like, I'm a judge, I've been in this field for 26 years. Everything you saw in the documentary, it's real. Everything that is in the documentary, Absolutely true. Anyone who
Wow.
tells you different, they are liars.
Wow.
And like all these other people during the press conference, they are like, oh shit.
God bless this woman, man. You still have
Super
some
brave,
honest people out
super
there.
brave. And then like maybe a few hundred judges, they signed like a petition letter that everything is right, everything in the documentary is true. There's been collusion between corrupt politicians and judges. And now the president of Romania, he's kind of trying to offer some sort of
Okay.
protection to whistleblowers, people out in the streets. And Romania has a history of doing brave things in December. Like the Romanian Revolution of 1989, it started in December. Ceausescu was shot in December.
It's the cold, right?
It's a cold, it's a lag. Yeah, it's, people, it's like the darkness. It gets dark very early, and people generally run out of options, and they're like, we can't just take it. We can't take it any longer. And the other thing that we talked about with corrupt laws, they all happened in December. So let's see. It's December again.
Wait a second. Do you get a feeling that this is real? Like there's some real energy and movement around like some sort of a real anti-corruption thing, or this is one of those that will pass?
There is a problem. To me, the problem is that the people who seem to be running this mechanism, they do it in a legal fashion because they are experts at leveraging the law in their advantage. And I spoke to a friend of mine who finished the law school, and he said, all these cases that they showed in the documentary, these are the cases that we as lawyers, we learn from. Like, we learn to defend our customers, our clients, from all these big cases. Like, what were those guys doing? Like the corrupt politicians, whatever. Delay, change, try to change the judges, promote the judges, like try to delay it until it's, it's a statute of limitations. And he said, like, this is a clear, like, textbook. This is what we learn in school. And it's all legal. Like, you can't touch the judges. Like, everything is legal. If somebody will fall, it will be maybe just one person or another, but not
so
everybody.
where it gets interesting to me is like when you mention sort of the president, is the impression that the president is not like in line with this kind of corruption, because that's where it gets interesting, right? You tell me that maybe the intelligence services are involved, and like there are some people who are not playing in the system, are not fond of it. Then you've got a recent election and all the sort of madness that went through to get a new president on board, and then you see something like this happen that has support where you are putting it on state TV. Then it seems more like an internal battle, but it isn't to me, it doesn't feel the kind of nefarious when you say, oh, this is like external meddling, right? Like the US didn't, or like the Russians didn't come up with this documentary and then seed it in theory, right? Because if it was all guerrilla, right? If it was all the kind of thing that we saw, for example, the Navalny type documentaries where they were great, you get it. It has a good point, but it's obvious that like, it's not the Russian parts of the Russian government that are trying to feed this to the Russian people. It's clearly coming from elsewhere. That always, it rankles the locals, right? Like there's something upsetting about somebody else getting involved, even when they're telling the truth. But when it's like internal factions fighting, you go, okay, well, this shit's interesting, right? Clearly there is a support base that is trying to wrestle control out of an existing faction. And that's a lot more interesting to me.
Yeah, and as you were saying, what is the president saying and about this? And of course, a lot of people put their hopes in this new president, who is a math Olympic winner. He won the math Olympiad with like a perfect score, I think, maybe even twice in the past. And a lot of people were like super disappointed after the election because he's probably facing the same issues as his predecessor, which is that the president in Romania has no power. He's just more like a figure.
Ceremonial kind of thing, yeah.
And also in the past, there have been presidents which knew how to gamble and how to leverage their position to do things, like to do serious anti-corruption fights. And after the elections, a lot of people lost hopes. And the worst thing is that immediately after this documentary dropped, I think some of his social media crew, which are absolutely terrible, if you ask me, and everything they post on X on his behalf looks like just AI written shit that nobody trusts and nobody believes. It's so sad to watch all that. And I think some of his social media crew, they just posted some random message on X saying that, yeah, I watched the documentary, and it's easy to be upset about these things, but it's much harder to fix it. And I have a lot of questions like, who is doing this and why hasn't it? And people were like,
The
man,
fuck?
this is exactly why I voted for our president, to wonder why this and why that. Thank you. Thank you, sir, for wondering. And other people were like, come on, this
Yeah.
is disappointing. And I think
Yeah.
that yesterday, I think yesterday, he wrote another message, which is no longer AI. I don't think it's
Ah.
his social media team any longer, in which he says some real thing. He says, like, on Monday, I'm going to have a meeting with all these judges. And if any of you are like whistleblowers and you need to tell me something, here's how you can reach me. Like, you need to write to this address or you need to write to this address. And I'm going to have a meeting with all of you on Monday, and we're going to stay like forever. There's like no time limit. So if it will take whatever 20 hours, we're going to be there for 20 hours. And people are like, well done, like finally
Yeah.
there's something happening. You can do something, you have the power to do
Right.
something. And also like I was saying, he might still be a kind of a dreamer and has little true power. I think the power still lies with the people, with whoever can do a change in this country is the people. There's like nothing else left.
I mean, if any country has experience handling these situations with aplomb, it's the Romanians. And frankly, I hope that there are people in Romania in power right now who remember how Romanians take care of politicians they no longer like. I look forward to seeing that Romanian spirit. Hopefully, it doesn't have to come to that, but sometimes it has to come to that. Yeah, it's not the first time a documentary suddenly sparks.
I thought it was like a beautiful picture. So the other side, let's call it the other side. So the other side did this press conference in which they brought together perhaps, I don't know, 20, 30 judges in support of the leadership. And it's like everyone's sitting in there. Some of them are standing. And if you look, who are these people? Who are those guys? And there's the judge who actually acquitted the Tate brothers. Oh, and that's like the judge who acquitted like that corruption case. Oh, wonderful. That's the judge who was involved in that case and dismissed it. And it's like a beautiful picture,
A who's
of
who
everyone.
of flexible jurisprudence.
Of gambling the system in a legal way. Again, it's all legal. It's like according to internal regulations and according to the letter of the law, in a very creative manner. And it's the way the things are in here.
Right. There's less than 20 days left in December, so let's see.
Rush.
December is a month where everything
Start building
happens.
those fucking gallows right outside of the people's palace.
Let's jump into what's happening for a little bit. This is also the month of React. React had taken up a bunch of our podcasts last week as we were trying to get to the bottom of what was happening. We had gotten news from Amazon that they had seen some APT activity. Since then, over the last week, a bunch of all the cybersecurity vendors are issuing their reports. I saw Palo Alto confirming a report from SysDig that North Korean actors have also been exploiting this 2025-55182 to deliver EtherRAT. In addition, Palo Alto we saw vendors reporting cloud credential theft, cryptocurrency miners, the usual droppers and that kind of thing. Costin, you did a whole TLPBLACK had a big giant blog post up on anatomy of one of these exploits. Can you talk a little bit about what, before you get to the blog and what you were trying to say there? Can you give us a snapshot of what you're seeing and what is what is interesting and newsworthy around exploitation.
Of course, and since the last week, when some of the exploitation attempts for this have just begun, if you remember, they were like just starting on Friday. We can say that this has become, a full-fledged invasion, like overwhelming the internet. So some of our honeypots, they are seeing hundreds of these attacks per day, maybe more than hundreds actually. And pretty much all the big groups out there, they found a way to adopt and adapt this exploit to their toolkits. That includes APTs, a lot of cyber criminals, and what we have seen so far is mostly cyber criminal activity, and activity we can't tie for sure to known actors, which may be APTs, of course. We worked in incident response, doing incident response for a couple of customers who were affected by this. And it was quite interesting. There were a couple of techniques that we described in this blog that I don't think have been described anywhere else or documented. For instance, in one case, the attackers deployed their own Node.js ecosystem inside the same machine, and they deployed their own JavaScript backdoors, including a OpenSSH implemented in JavaScript to achieve and maintain persistence on that machine. And there's two binaries that we have seen for this purpose: a backdoor and this OpenSSH in JavaScript. And I think that one of them on VirusTotal, it had like something like 0 detection. That was like not detected at all.
Is it
The other
ransomware?
not ransomware, just backdoors for remote persistence that were deployed in addition to their main toolset, which was cryptocurrency miners, XMRig, for that machine. But this persistent mechanism, I thought was quite ingenious, and I don't think I've seen it described anywhere else in any of the other blogs from every other security company out there, because by now pretty much everybody has published something about this. So yeah, if you have time, do take a look at our blog posts written by mostly by my colleagues. I was busy doing accounting, so I apologize for not helping a lot with this, but to catch up, I've been writing Yara rules for all the tools and trying to deobfuscate the remote access tools, the JavaScript remote access tools that we have seen from these incidents.
Do we have any sort of visibility into patching levels? Because the only defense from this is to get this thing properly patched. Last week on the show, I asked specifically, is it something that's easy to patch? Have we gotten a feel for, one, people getting on top of patching, and what kind of exposure is still out there? Are we minimizing exposure, or are we still seeing just boatload of potential victims out there?
I think, like I said last week, patching is so hard for this particular case because it's not just running some command and it's patched. You need to update the libraries, the vulnerable ones, with the new versions, and then you need to redeploy your website. And it's not straightforward, like to say the least. So I think the only kind of hope here is that a lot of websites, they run on some kind of a platform or behind Cloudflare, or maybe, I don't know, Netlify or other similar services. And the hope is that these platforms, they can implement their own filtering mechanisms to
provide some mitigation downstream.
Provide some mitigation, and let's say to cut the 99.9% of these things. I don't even believe it's possible to cut everything. Depending on how the mitigations are implemented, it might not be possible to cut or to fully protect everyone. So at best, let's say that if they deploy the mitigations, the attackers can just engineer ways around those mitigations. So I think the only true solution is to update and redeploy the ecosystem, the site.
Juanito, are you guys bracing for this being a long tail type of thing that will be in like config or forever, one of these forever entry points?
I mean, it would be silly not to. right? Not to have it be a part of that. And I think when you talk about forever vulns like that, the real issue is simply that it's not like there's much you can do about it. It has to do with the inattentiveness and sort of just realities of how things get deployed and how things live, right? Like a lot, of course, when you're talking about services and websites that are managed by big companies and existing businesses, big tech native businesses, we can have big expectations about what folks should and should not do. But the reality of the internet is that there's a lot of shit out there. There's a lot of things that, are just, they're serving their purpose, right? You own a bakery and you have a website, and the website is just supposed to give you a digital presence for having a fucking bakery. And no, it's not the biggest problem for that business to essentially go keep up with every React or every dependency vuln that might pop up. You can't exactly blame them for that, but it just creates. You mentioned Conficker. Conficker is a insanely old piece of malware that lives to this day, and to me, it's just one of the many ways that we see the realities of technical debt in how things work across the internet and how things work across these things that we care about. Costin mentioned, you have Cloudflare and Netlify and stuff like that. This is an argument for having these sorts of managed services when you aren't, unless you're extremely technically proficient and extremely keyed in, and this is going to be like your project that you care about forever and ever. There is an argument to be made for relying on services like Cloudflare that are going to deploy a WAF and set of rules, and they're going to at least try to mitigate the issues around stuff like this on your behalf, right? I'm not saying that's the solution for everybody, but to some extent,
It feels very much that that's the solution for everybody. We're just seeding and
yeah,
we're leasing security, we're handing security off to a third party. And in Cloudflare's case, I mean, they've become kind of like the model of what I call the new monoculture of, Cloudflare goes down for 15 minutes, the whole internet feels it. When we
right.
start to farm out our security to these MSPs or these service providers, that's the world we end up in, though. Is that something we want to? Is that way we want to be?
I rather that's where we go, to be completely honest. I'm not put off by the idea that we have such a great service in Cloudflare that when it encounters issues every once in a while, that takes down a good portion of the internet. It's a very once in a while thing, but I think the benefits outweigh the costs or the downsides at this time in this way with this Cloudflare drastically, right? Like we're not talking about DDoS being an impactful thing most of the time. That's almost like a solved problem, which is
True.
crazy to say.
True.
5 years ago, that was not the case. 10 years ago, you posted the wrong fucking blog. Krebs on Security posted the wrong blog, and they would get fucking taken down, right? So there are things that Cloudflare has solved for us, and like I said a couple episodes ago, they're being a responsible steward. They're being, they're being quite open and transparent and helpful. I don't see a problem with it. Is that the solution for everybody? Does that mean everyone and everything should run behind Cloudflare? No, but I think that there is a best practice guidance that we need to provide for folks that are casually engaged in having internet resources, casually engaged in deploying a website. You're vibe coding your way to success. You're asking some consultant or somebody on Fiverr to build you a site that you're never going to look at again. Well, you know what? It's probably better that you host that behind Cloudflare or something else that is going to provide some protection, because at the end of the day, really, the problem is not for these businesses, right? A lot of these places, the kind of things that are vulnerable to React and React2Shell and are not going to get patched, they're also not websites that are like necessarily critically exposing anything that of value per se. In some cases they are, right? Like you've got customer data and okay, problematic. But in some cases it's like I said, right? Like the website for a bakery. the issue isn't for the bakery. The issue is for the rest of us that there is a supposedly benign resource on the internet that is now being co-opted to do something else, whether it's a DDoS or to become a staging server or a command and control server or whatever the hell it is,
Or a watering hole
compromised
site. Yeah.
watering hole. Exactly. So it's not like it's benign. It's not like innocuous. I'm not saying that it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that if we're realistic about the things that cause technical debt and maintain technical debt, then we need to come up with reasonable recommendations for people who just want to use the internet as part of their normal life operations and aren't looking to become security experts part time. Like I said, I don't think we should look down or problematize relying on things like Cloudflare in moments like this. They're kind of lifesavers, and I wish we had something like that for Conficker, right? Like,
But what do enterprises do? I mean, this thing powers. I mean, this thing lives in intranets. We talked about this last week on intranets and a lot of like web portals and stuff. Those guys can't go hide behind Cloudflare. Like the reality is just going and patching and figuring out this debt and figuring out how do we manage this thing on a long term. If we expect this to have a long tail. Costin, can you talk a little bit about any sort of APT-related activity targeting this? SysDig said they saw North Koreans doing an exploit to deliver EtherRAT, a persistent access implant. Do we know what EtherRAT is? And can you confirm that there's definitely some nation-state tooling happening around React2Shell?
I mean, there's for sure. I mean, we know from some of the initial blogs, I think from Amazon, that nation states were already exploiting
And
this.
we got IOX with those too, right? That could help us confirm that. Yeah.
There's IOX for that, and in case of EtherRAT, this is a new, let's say, newish backdoor that leverages the Ethereum blockchain for command and control. And I noticed there was a blog post from our friends at NLab in Korea about this. Unfortunately, it's only in Korean. I couldn't find an English version, but of course, I can just go ahead and translate it. Unfortunately, the indicators from their blog, they can't be found on VirusTotal, so the samples, I've just added them to monitoring. So let's hope that they show up on VirusTotal. There's just, let's say, older versions of EtherRAT that I think were described by Google this summer, which is mostly like Google said, is mostly used by North Korea aligned threat actors. That would be Lazarus. In the command and control mechanism, Ethereum command and control mechanism is something that makes it maybe a bit harder to spot by network appliances or next gen firewalls and the likes. Perhaps, I say only perhaps. As always, it's not just the communication of the RAT itself that compromises an enterprise, but where it is deployed, like specifically in which part of the network, such in this case, maybe on the web servers, which have less monitoring, and the kind of logging that you have. And I think that in this story, logging was one of the big weaknesses. The fact that from the standard logs, like let's say Apache, Nginx, whatever you have there, there's a little chance to spot these attacks. You need deeper logs. You need the React application logs, like its internal logs, in order to spot and confirm the full target and exploitation of this vulnerability.
And that's not always available?
That's not always available, no. And I think that you can enable, of course, you can enable logging headers, things like that in a web server configuration, or you can even like modify your application, your node. Did I say node again? Your React. I think I said node before. I mean Next.js and the React application to do more logging, extensive logging, and then to push those logs through some sort of a mechanism to your SOC. Because again, by default, it may be that these logs don't even get accounted for. And some of these compromises can be totally silent, like no traces, which is like one of the worst things about this story.
You mentioned all the vendors pushing out their blog reports. I want to mention Wiz had a really interesting blog on monitoring cloud attacks. The folks at Huntress seen attempts to deliver a wide range of malware to customer systems, including some Linux backdoor. Palo Alto also mentioned a Linux backdoor. Juanito, how heavily do we have to lean on antivirus, anti-malware providers like your company to help kind of protect through this while we try to patch phase? Is there a heavy reliance on anti-malware now?
I mean, right now, I think there's a heavy reliance on anybody that has visibility into anything. I mean, frankly,
right.
because, I mean, think about what we're talking about. For the most part, this is going to be affecting VPSs and like servers that are meant to host online facing things. It's not all of it, but like a lot of what you're going to be dealing with is going to be cloud resources. And I'm happy when you see people deploying EDR on cloud resources and having proper monitoring. I mean, we do a lot of work to integrate into those marketplaces and things to like make things easy to deploy so people will, because a lot of folks just choose not to. But it's one of those situations where whomever has access to some sort of regency and defense is meant to sort of jump on there. For us, it's been, big hunting, big time hunting, to see the kind of, you kind of want to focus on behaviors and say, okay, what with anything that has to do with an O-day on our end, like the S1 philosophy is one of focusing on behavioral anomaly rather than trying to chase after every 0 day. The whole point of a 0 day is whatever's going to come is something that we're not prepared for, that we don't know about, that nobody knows about. So how about we focus on the fact that like, hey, this server is suddenly popping up a series of processes that were never before coming up in that chain of execution, or it's suddenly creating files or loading files or doing things in memory that it was never doing before. I think that's a much more, not to toot our own horn, but I think that that's a much more sort of measured and generalist, heuristic, pragmatic approach to the realities of what it's like to deal with O-days. But at the end of the day, I'm not worried so much about the folks that have our EDR or somebody else's EDR or some kind of EDR on these things. I'm worried about the fact that my guess that is that in most Linux VPSs that are hosting this, there's just nothing. So what you hope for is maybe the cloud provider, it becomes particular, like let's say an Amazon, right, is particularly incentivized to check their backyard and they're paying attention. But that's not going to be the case with, OVH and DigitalOcean and whomever. It's just, it's going to be whatever, right?
What happens next, Costin? Wrap up this React2Shell segment here. What should folks be focused on? Should people just be scrambling to patch? Like, what do you expect what do you expect we'll be talking about next week? Is this going to be settled? We're going to be in a better place?
I think there's still probably some interesting discoveries because there's a lot of massive targeting, but I wonder also if there would be some kind of a very directed, like, very targeted infections and leveraging tools in this particular exploit by some of the high-end APTs that maybe we haven't seen any blogs about. So still waiting to see what else is coming. I mean, people are sifting through their honeypots, through their incoming mailboxes, queues, and whatever, trying to find interesting gems, interesting discoveries. So I'm still hoping and looking to read some blogs about what else can be found. And then I guess the most important thing is to try to patch this thing. And I was actually wondering at some point if perhaps people like, EDR vendors, whatever security vendors, they need to add the vulnerable libraries to their detection mechanisms, because I think that's the only way you can try to weed this out from the root. Otherwise, it's very highly unlikely that, like you were saying, cloud providers can actually clean up the mess for you. You probably need to do a bit more here, and I wonder if actually those libraries can now be just detected as almost as being malicious. The moment that you spot one of these vulnerable libraries in your infrastructure you need to is like an emergency, so you need to send firefighters there.
The other thing is, whenever there's blood in the water, you expect to see vulnerability researchers and bug finders poking around. We've already
Finding
seen
more, huh?
we've already seen a pair of new additional vulnerabilities have been identified in the React server components protocol. 2 new issues were discovered while researchers are examining the patches for React2Shell. So it's already happening. There are 2 new vulnerabilities that need to be patched. None of them are, they're mostly denial of service, but not remote code execution. But I mean, we expect that this thing is going to have a lot more eyeballs, and there may be some patching coming down the pike. Is there any way to make patching easier?
I think there should be. I mean, the way the whole thing is designed, it doesn't make patch easy, in my opinion. Because it's like, just imagine the following, and I think we discussed it in the past when there was some vulnerability in a compiler, and you deploy a smart contract, but as long as it's compiled with that vulnerable compiler version, your smart contract is vulnerable to race conditions. So I don't know, like, what's like the future of this ecosystem, which has become like the new PHP. It's now super popular and feels a bit like a bit fragile. That's how I would describe it. Feels a bit fragile, and it also gives you a kind of a fake impression of safety, of being solid, resilient. You think like, hey, there's like my website is all static. There's like no dynamic code, so I can't possibly be exploited. But like this kind of bugs, such as the one that we're talking about here, React2Shell, this serialization trick, I think there's more potential for this kind of bugs to be discovered in the future. And it's good that people are looking here. I think that maybe there is also a potential for security products that integrate somewhere in this ecosystem deeper. Like I said, there's no logs that are useful outside of the container. So there's for sure some business opportunities, innovation opportunities, and actually I think there's already some very promising startups out there looking into this issue.
Juanito, one thing you raised last week was the fact that when you're vibe coding, you're automatically polling these things in. Is there some mitigation that end users can expect in that ecosystem?
It depends on who you are working with, and admittedly, I haven't tested everything, but one company in particular that I thought was having a particularly sort of mature reaction was Vercel. They have this, I don't know if they would describe it as a vibe coding platform, but they have this thing called V0. It's like a really nifty tool to create like front ends. So, you go, hey, we're going to build a website. You go on this thing and go, hey, I need a front end that looks like, I don't know, a Riverside platform.
Make me a three-body problem website, right?
And so they're very focused on kind of enterprise-worthy front-end deployments. And I mentioned them last time because they're one of the organizations that I saw kind of prominently discussing this on Twitter and making a big deal out of like folks that might find sort of the weaponization of the vuln and so on.
The bypasses and the WAF bypasses, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So they've also been pushing this idea of they have like an automated React2Shell patching service. So I haven't tested it myself. I'm curious for people that may already have had any projects on Vercel or if it just kind of lets you connect whatever it is that you're using. But, these guys are thinking about it the right way, right? The whole fucking point of this thing is that it's supposed to help you sort of automate these processes. You already have access to the back end. You have access to the implementation. You have an agent that's supposed to be able to manage the coding and the management of the thing. Well, fucking patch it, right? So I'm curious to hear from people that have tried it. I have not tried it myself. But, taking it at face value, I think it's super cool. Like, this is actually something where rather than just, random vibe, flights of vibe coding fancy, becoming an auto patcher and auto vulnerability management thing, I think is a much niftier possibility for a lot of these services.
Yeah. I can't help but notice how much we dodged the bullet that this was kind of privately reported, discovered, privately reported to Meta, got patches out before this chaos could start. This week was also Patch Tuesday. And Patch Tuesday usually brings its other batch of things to patch. I'll start with Microsoft. They actually list one bug under active attack and two that were information is known. So we have a new 0-day from Microsoft. But as usual, that's all we have is a patch, and it says that it's 0-day. It's credited to Mystic and MSRC, so it probably was, you can guess it where it was picked up. I don't know. I feel like this is like beating a dead horse, but should Microsoft be giving us a little more than just this thing is under active attack? Or we've just given up on that ghost?
Have we given up on Microsoft, do you mean? Or have we given up on
the
having
ghost
expectations?
The ghost of hoping for IOX for in the wild attacks when you're patching all day. I mean, it's not too much to ask for something to say, hey, have I been infected?
I don't think we should ever give up hope. At the same time, I think you need to believe.
I wanted to know, how do I bring up this conversation on the podcast? Like, we've had this. I feel like this shit we're going to do for the next 10 minutes, we've done fucking an hour.
We've done it 100 times. We've done it 100 times. Look, but here's the thing, right? You don't want to give up hope. At the same time, I think you need to believe people when they show you who they are, right? Like it's Microsoft has shown us that this isn't a small, bug. It isn't a blip. It isn't because somebody got distracted. Microsoft doesn't give a fuck about this. And my apologies to our friends and all people who've been talking to me about whatever and trying to convince me that things with Igor and all of his Bridgewater and PwC consultant friends coming in to form a layer of middle management bullshit is somehow like a good idea. I don't give a fuck. What I do care about is the fact that Microsoft is sitting it out on security. They're not really playing ball. They're not really actually benefiting the ecosystem in any way that I think is commensurate to their skill or their ability or their access or visibility or the amount of people and services that rely on them. And we and everybody else should hang that around their necks until it changes. So I don't think that we need to just kind of give up, but I also think we need to accept it for what it is and not keep it as an open question and say, oh, hey, Microsoft, this time, are you going to play? No? Okay, well, I guess we'll see you next week, right? Like, Patch Tuesdays happen regularly. What the fuck is going on? What is, like, if we're going to have arguments about whether, is Microsoft and Mystic, are they going to publish blogs and whatever? You know what? That's asking too much at this point. Can we start with, can you give us security advisories that include IOCs and concrete discussions of how things are being exploited and where things came from and where they're going? Can we fucking start there? Let's set the clock all the way back, right? Like you guys have been eroding your contributions to the security ecosystem steadily and have shown us that it's not something that you care to correct. So this isn't a matter of like community
PR and
management.
Market your way out of this. Like
That's my point.
Right.
I don't want anybody to hold my hand. I don't need you to come, tell me a sad fucking story or sing me a sad song. Just, you're not doing it. You were doing it. You have no reason to not do it, right? On the MSRC side, there's no fucking question of like, whether you should be putting that kind of information out. So, don't piss in my pocket and tell me it's raining. Just fucking accept that you're not doing this shit and you don't feel like playing security, and let's just go from there.
You mentioned Igor. Igor is the CISO at Microsoft. Just announced this week the promotion of our friend Sherrod Agrippo to a deputy CISO position there. And I bring this up in the context of this because I feel like, and I want to give Sherrod all the benefit of the doubt, that she's made genuine efforts to engage with community and maybe be that voice internally fighting that push and pull. I want to give her all the benefit of the doubt. Do you expect, Sherrod is your friend, you've seen this, do you expect some agitation for change with her moving up the ladder, getting this deputy CISO role? She's a podcaster. She's active on doing the outreach side of things. Do we expect a little bit of change here? Are we hopeful?
I don't know. I have So let me sort of address this as plainly as I can, because I don't, like I've said many times, I don't want to throw Sherrod under the bus.
100%. That's not.
Like, I am happy for Sherrod to get promoted. I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of Microsoft's, whirlwind bureaucracy. Does that mean that she is now in a position to make substantive decisions about what security disclosures are going to look like, what engagement the community is going to look like? Because if that is the case, I am very excited for this change, and I'm sure that Sherrod knows kind of like the better things to do here. However, if that's not what's happening, and instead this is like, oh, okay, we promoted her, so she's going to be the one to take it on the chin, but she doesn't get to make any different decisions here, then I feel for Sherrod, and I don't really know who to hang this around at that point, right? Because I think that's the again, I don't want to call her out or put her in a bad situation, but we all know what it's like to get those quote unquote promotions, right? Where somebody suddenly slaps a title on you and they go, "Well done, kid. Now go deal with the consequences of all of our choices." And if she's not going to be given, empowered to make any kind of different choices or speak up differently or be more candid and honest, then it's actually a pretty shit situation to put her or anybody else in. I hope it's not the case. She just got the post. I hope this is a signal of good things, because I don't know what the fuck we're supposed to get from a bunch of like consultant assholes from PwC and Bridgewater who have never done security before, who apparently are now the middle management layer across all of security at Microsoft. Like, I don't know who the fuck thinks this is all a good idea. I also don't know why, I don't want to call out Charlie Bell, but like, Charlie seems to have sort of shirked this shit off and sent it somewhere else.
Some cloud group, right?
Yeah, just like, yeah, fuck off. You guys go over there. This is not a small thing. What is happening at Microsoft about security is a corrosive problem that is affecting everybody in this industry. And like, did you guys watch? This is a tangent, but it's not entirely unrelated. Like, did you guys watch this P. Diddy documentary on Netflix?
Not yet.
It's actually phenomenal. It's really good. It's fucking wild. Like, I don't want to spoil it for you, but like, it is phenomenally well done. But the reason I'm thinking about it is the documentary was basically financed by 50 Cent. And when you watch, there's an interview with 50 Cent and the director of the documentary, and the interviewer asks, well, I'm trying to remember what the exact question was, but it was something along the lines of like, is what we're seeing about, P. Diddy representative of rap culture? And 50 Cent says, actually, the reason I did this documentary, that I financed this documentary, is if I didn't say something about it, then it would have implied that rap culture was okay with what P. Diddy was doing. And that's the situation that I think we're in right now. And I don't put that at the feet of people who necessarily work at Microsoft, and that's their livelihood, and they're trying their best. And clearly there's a nefarious corporate culture that is not incentivizing people to do good things for everybody else. It's incentivizing some weird culture of silence and witch hunts and all this like bullshit. But I think for the rest of us that are not gagged and bound by NDAs and stuff, it is up to us to call bullshit when we see it. And I just have not, I don't remember the last thing I saw from Microsoft that made me feel like, oh, cool. Like, they're doing the right thing. Any sense of
optimism for anything, right?
Well, like that they're investing any of their sizable resources on doing anything for the security industry, security community, security standards, anything. All we've seen is erosion, and them swallowing up more resources, taking more researchers, firing random people, hiring random people, lying to government, trying to manage our expectations and trying to keep us all quiet. But where's the substantive action? Where is the nice thing that you do? Where is the, we're going to invest into this and provide people with that, and we're going to share access to this thing? You took passive total, everyone complained, you told us all to pound sand. You're apparently writing all kinds of amazing reports, research. I don't know who you're sharing it
Nobody's
with.
seeing
You're
it,
not
yeah.
publishing it. I don't even know if you can buy it. So what the fuck is the point of what you're doing? And with MSRC, like, that is not, you don't patch shit because you're doing us a favor. You have a responsibility on the basis of the code bases that you manage. And if you're gonna shirk that responsibility, fucking let us know so we can operate as if you're not here and you're not engaged. I don't know, man.
I bring up possible optimism around Sherrod's promotion because when you tweeted about the Igor speech at CyberWarCon, when there was a vibe that he was intimating that Microsoft should publish less and should there was something around sharing. Sherrod was publicly saying, hey, that's not what was said. And hey, look, Mystic has published this, Mystic has published that. My own thing is, a lot of what I get out in the Microsoft blogs now is marketing for like Defender and all their other stuff. Even if it's a threat research report, it feels very marketing heavy. I don't know. I don't know how it's fixed either. Costin, you got a thought? Any thoughts at all on this Microsoft world?
I mean, I thought what Juan was saying was beautiful, but so different from Juan's other rants, and reminded me of something like, I love watching the different versions of Jesus Christ Superstar. There's like a song there, Heaven
Where's
on
this
Their
going?
Minds. I'll tell you, like Heaven on Their Minds. And there's like different people who sang Heaven on Their Minds. During there was Carl Anderson, like the original Judas, and his version of Heaven on Their Minds. Like he's like really desperate. Like that's the feeling. And there's other versions. Like more recent ones, including there's a version, by the way, of Jesus Christ Superstar with John Legend, and the Judas there is not like Carl Anderson. It's not that how to say, it's more kind of depressed. And today's
There is no
rant
passion.
from
It's
Juan,
not passionate, right?
no, like it's desperate in the sense of like close to giving up hope, and it feels like this
Long
situation
lost
is
forlorn,
close to giving up hope. I mean, initially we were all outraged and upset, and now we are just
He's going through the phases of mourning.
and I'll quote you. And in this area, it says something along the lines, "It was beautiful, but now it's sour." So that's how it feels.
Juanito, you want to amend that rant for this guy?
No, I don't. What I'll tell you is, I'll tell you exactly what I'm feeling right now, which is that I can see something nefarious and shitty happening at Microsoft at the level of Igor and the executives. And I don't want to in any way diminish Sherrod or John Lambert, for example. But right now, it feels like you just picked up one of our friends and you're using them as like
shield,
a human shield, right? Like you're putting her in front of us and being like, oh, but you like her, right? So like you're cool with everything that's happening over here. And that does, it's too early. Again, I don't want to kneecap Sherrod. If maybe this is the promotion that's meant to like fix everything and give us like a face and a voice and somebody inside who's actually like responsive. So maybe it's just a matter of time and we're being impatient. But if this isn't like a revolutionary change, then I am all the more dismayed at the prospect of essentially having to shoot through one of our friends, because at the end of the day, the real conversation that has to happen is with Igor or Charlie Bell or whomever else is going to fucking put their face in front of the decisions that Microsoft has been making. And it really shouldn't be a member of our community unless they are empowered and they can walk up and say, I made this choice. This is what the choice is. I made this choice and this is why we're doing it. And you guys, you can like it or not like it, but this is what it is. You go, oh, okay. Right? Like we'd at least be having like a face-to-face and something. But I don't like the idea of just trying to whitewash
Did he
what
freeze?
is clearly a couple of years
Did
of
everyone
shit policy behind somebody we like.
Oh my god, my internet went out. Fuck.
I think Ryan's internet just crapped out right at the
At
perfect
the
moment.
right moment. But like,
Oh my God.
if you want to just be practical, Juan, I was
Can't
saying I
believe
like to be
Hilton Honors can't
practical, and
just
if I can ask for a small thing, just to prove that we are wrong, can we get a blog post with IOX about CV 2025 662.221? Just a small thing. Some
Hilton
IOX.
Honors
Who
not
was
even
behind it?
connecting.
Who's using it?
Which one
Maybe
is
some
six?
detection. It's the one that we've been talking about, this Windows Cloud Files Mini Driver escalation of privilege, the one that they say it's being used in the wild. And it's maybe perhaps similar to the one in October, which, by the way, is also interesting. The one in October was reported by SSD Disclosure, this Korean zero-day buying company. So I wonder if they found this one by just looking for things similar to the bug from October reported by SSD Disclosure. Nevertheless, like small request from our side, if we could get a blog, well, I think that would be a wonderful way to prove us wrong.
Look, let's see if
Let's
they're
see.
listening. Let's see if
We
they're
know
paying
we're
attention.
listening. We know, and like we like to be specific, and we like to ask for IOX. So there we go. We are asking for IOX.
Let's see if they like you, Costin.
Thank you.
The other thing we
Ryan,
got out
the
of
internet's
patch.
not your friend.
It's not my friend again today. I'm back. I'm on a 5G hotspot, so let's see how this goes. The other thing we got it today is we got a chance to mention the name Fortinet. Fortinet dropped patch Tuesday 18 vulnerabilities across its products patches, including 2 vulnerabilities that allows attackers to bypass authentication, CVS 9.8. Impacting FortiOS, FortiWeb, FortiProxy, and FortiSwitch Manager. These things have some amazing names. This is that world of no inspectability. This is that world where threat actors are living. Anything to say at all, Costin, about these Fortinet critical patches other than tell people to go figure out patching it?
Well, I did take a look at the Fortinet patch notes, this security bulletin they released, and there's an interesting point there. They do say that this is not enabled by default, so that's I guess it's a good news. But then as a first mitigation, they say just disable this FortiCloud single sign-on login authentication. So just disable that is the maybe top mitigation if you want. I guess the reason why this CVSS is not 10 is just 9.8, which is still bad enough. It's not 10 probably because it's not super trivial to exploit. So maybe we'll not see it being exploited in the wild immediately. Also, the fact that it's not enabled by default, it means that it might not affect as many as previous Fortinet bugs. But I mean, it's Friday. It's another Fortinet or Ivanti or whatever. So you're welcome. If you're still running one of these platforms, sure, go for it.
I tell you, when I'm preparing for this podcast and I'm putting these things into the list of things to talk about, I'm like, what new can we say about this shit? Like, I mean,
What
it's like the
old can we
Microsoft
say
segment,
about this
right?
shit?
It's like the Microsoft segment. You just keep repeating the same things over and over, and then I feel like we're done with this podcast.
I
It
feel
was
like we
beautiful,
should.
but now it's sour.
It's sour. I
getting
feel
there.
like we should look for alternative things to buy and dedicate this segment to promoting buying
Free
other
promotion
things.
of buying
Honestly,
other
yeah,
things.
dude. If somebody
what?
can send us, like equivalent devices or things that they're buying that they're like, hey, this is much better. Fuck Fortinet, fuck Ivanti, fuck whatever. Like I'm buying this device and it's within the same price range and it's so much more reliable and like let us know and I will be more than happy to plug that shit to death at this point because I think that is the better end of it, right? Like with the Microsoft thing, what happens? We complain, we deflate, we get upset, and at the end of the whole thing, we go, well, I hope I
We're
hope
still
the
a
government
monoculture. We just have
I hope the government fucking slams them to death, or they lose their FedRAMP certification, or somebody, just finally Hegseth, gets pissed and finally decides that it's the year of like military on Linux or something. But with the fucking appliances, it's been 70 something episodes of us bitching about them, but
there's no
you know
alternatives. There's no
they
inspectability. There's no alternatives. It leads to a long tail of hurt down the line. It's packed up
yeah.
in this CISA Kev advisory, just full of them. And then I go on the RSA show floor and I realize, wait the fuck, these are security vendors. I see a big Ivanti booth about stopping zero-day attacks, and I'm like, which world am I living in? Like,
Yeah.
these security vendors are like, there's a forest fire over here, and they're just happily selling software. Dude, every Patch Tuesday I get a pitch in my inbox, my journalism inbox, from someone at Ivanti wanting to weigh in on Microsoft patches as a thought leader. And I'm like, what world am I living in?
Wow. The fucking gall, right?
That's what I'm saying. We signed the pledge. We were forced to take the pictures. We have the gall. And this is
Dude.
the world we live in. This world of hurt where there's no alternatives and there's no mitigations. You just kind
Dude,
of
what
you
are
live
you
in this
thinking?
hell.
You need to answer those emails and give those people an opportunity to come on the podcast and talk to us about their bones. I will happily talk. Like, look, to be totally forthright, right? Like, I don't want to bring Sherrod on this podcast because I don't want her, like at this point, because I don't want her to answer for the sins of
Others.
her executives. If you want to send me an Ivanti exec, like we can save a seat. Like I'll leave a
4-hour
chair
episode.
for
I'd
the
vote
next
for 4-hour
few,
episode.
4-hour episode. Ivanti, Fortinet, if you're listening, fucking send us your best, and they are very welcome here. But the whole point is, like, I just want to have those. I do want to have those out loud conversations with the people that supposedly are shouldering these responsibilities. If you think you're such hot shit that you don't mind walking into whatever boardroom and saying that you're doing X, Y, and Z because you think that's what this company should be doing, then you should have the balls to fucking get up here and explain that to us and just own it. Just tell us, hey man, it's not worth our investment cycles. That's not what we want to do. We want to, we're a PE-owned whatever thing, and all we're trying to do is have recurring revenue, and you people just keep buying the same devices, and we haven't lost any customers on the basis of your shit O-days, so, suck it. Just own it. Be the Martin Shkreli or whatever of shitty security appliances. Like, do that. Yeah.
Right, enough of the shitty companies. Let's talk about some fun stuff, and let's stay with equipment because we got a story out of Poland about the arrest of Ukrainians passing by with red team equipment. I remember, Costin, when you talk about the tactical suitcases, when Apple started looking for paying big money for proximity type vulnerabilities and exploits. We saw the Polish police arrest 3 Ukrainian nationals in Warsaw after finding a stash of advanced hacking and surveillance equipment in their car, including a bunch of flippered zero devices, antennas, routers, SIM cards, laptops, cameras, all that type of gear. This is the type of thing you were talking about, right? This kind of like tactical tactical. No?
No. This is such a, like, if you ask me, this is such a strange story. I mean, even saying like, wow, we caught them with advanced hacking equipment like laptops. That's like really advanced hacking equipment. I mean, honestly, if you ask me, I don't understand why these guys got arrested, like in the first place. Why? Because they had Flipper Zero devices. I mean, my friend Dan, he walks around with one of these. Like, does it mean that he'll get arrested if he travels to Poland with it?
Maybe.
Which probably he does. Or with antennas, with routers. I mean, I've been traveling with travel routers, GLINet travel routers for security purposes, like to run my own VPN in hotel rooms. Numerous SIM cards. Nowadays I don't travel with numerous SIM cards because there's like eSIMs.
Like you'll get arrested one day, bro.
But this is scary. Like the fact that people can get arrested for traveling with, passing with red teaming equipment. And the suspects were charged with fraud of like what? What fraud? Computer fraud. Like, what was the fraud? possession of hacking tools. This is scary. I mean, would be perhaps there is another angle to this story that we don't know. Perhaps
Well,
there's
we've talked in the
more.
past.
There,
We've talked in the past about spies being caught with like spy equipment and antennas near
Yeah,
embassies and all that shit. When
fair
I read the
enough.
original
Fair
story, that's what I
enough.
thought this was. I thought this was one of those cases where there's a car driving by with two Ukrainians near an embassy somewhere in Poland, and they're just like, "What the fuck? What is all
I
these
still
laptops?"
think that that's what this is. I still like
That's what I thought.
personally.
That's what I thought when I read it.
Well, it's not like it's a story about like, hey, a
Mr.
foreign
Dansky
whatever.
on the street. Yeah.
Yeah. Dan Demeter was flying through an airport in Poland, and he happened to have a Flipper Zero in his pocket, and they threw him in jail, right? Like that. That's not what this is. What I think it's a poorly explained or not very deeply substantiated story. But if you think about it, right, when the Russians got picked up for the whole OPCW hack, like the Hades guys, you could have written the exact same story. Like it wasn't Flipper Zeros, but it was like a bunch of laptops and like a few antenna and some routers in a car. It's not like those dudes got picked up because they had that equipment. They knew that they were hacking, and then they picked them up, and they had the equipment. They also had, receipts for expensing where they were going from like the intelligence agency headquarters to the airport and stuff. So like, you're not being super careful. In this case, right? I have no fucking clue what's going on. My assumption is that they were watching these dudes. They knew they were hacking. They picked them up, and then they said, "Here's the equipment." And my question is, who are they hacking, and on behalf of whom? Because, are these Ukrainians in Poland hacking Polish things on behalf of the Ukrainian government? And why would you do that, right? Are these Ukrainians by name, the way that like the folks in, Crimea FSB / Gamaredon folks are quote unquote Ukrainians, but they're doing it on behalf of the Russians, or what the fuck is going on, right? Like like we're still missing sort of the punchline of this whole thing. And I'm not like immediately alarmed about the Polish suddenly going crazy and deciding to arrest every person that's ever bought a Flipper Zero. But I just assume that we're just not seeing the full extent of this one.
And it's coming amidst noise of sabotage, train sabotage, drones flying around, a lot of heightened anxiety around Polish intrusions of drones. So that's why I thought that the story felt nation-statey more than a Dan Demeter walking around with laptops and...
Maybe like still again, I'm still a bit not sure. A bit not sure again why these guys were arrested, because again there was no, they didn't get caught hacking or whatever. They were just like, I don't know, stopped and found to be in possession of hacking equipment, including Flipper Zero laptops, SIM cards, and so on. And they were claiming to be IT specialists traveling through Europe. So it's still a strange story to me. It's worrying in the sense like what happens if, I don't know, one of our friends like Joe Fitzpatrick traveling with all his tools, like everything he's carrying around, goes through Poland and they stop him and throw him in jail because he's carrying hacking equipment. I don't know. It feels a bit worrying, to be honest.
Joe's got stories about going across the CanSec West from Seattle up into Vancouver
Being stopped.
suitcases of all kinds of antennas and shit. So who knows?
Can you imagine him in Poland?
Another somewhat related story is Juanito, your team, Dakota Carries, has a report out tying two hackers to the Salt Typhoon intrusions and companies that were associated with that, to guys who attended a Cisco academy, making connections between the fact that these guys went to some Cisco training and eventually did some Cisco exploitation as part of the Salt Typhoon there. Can you set this up for us and explain to the audience what the big finding here was?
Yeah, so with some of the indictments and information that we've been getting about the folks behind Salt Typhoon, the great Dakota Carey, of course, set out to investigate some of the information about these individuals, and what he ended up coming up with. I mean, it was interesting findings about the companies and about the folks involved, but also the realization that they had actually earlier on attended this uh, Cisco Academy trainings, and eventually, like many years before, and eventually uh, went on to form this sort of unit that is doing that kind of hacking of Cisco devices. I think the implication, it's sort of interesting, right? Like what he's actually talking about in some ways is to say, you are developing this capability in China, maybe as early as 2012, when these folks were involved in this Cisco Network Academy Cup, and clearly they had the skills for what, 13 years now. We are becoming aware of how those skills are being used more recently, and quite shocked at it. But I think part of the implication here is what happens when you have this kind of like knowledge transfer and fomenting in a given country, but also the open question of like, what have these folks been up to for 13 years before you see them kind of comprising this elite hacking unit that we're all kind of panicked about. So just a super interesting kind of more human side of the story on the part of Dakota, and then coverage from our friend Andy Greenberg at Wired.
Yeah, and he had a piece on Wired. Two men linked to China's Salt Typhoon hacker group likely trained in a Cisco academy. Costin, does it feel any at all that this is a stretch, or you feel like the connections and the tying everything together is solid?
Well, I mean, I have only respect for Dakota's work, and we know it's of course super solid. The fact that he tracked down these guys based on the indictment, like their names, calculated the probability of how popular these names are across the Chinese population, and he found them. And I mean, it's pretty obvious that these are the guys who are mentioned in the indictment, and these are the same guys who studied at this not so respectable institution in China. But even as Dakota was saying, it's even more impressive that although they don't come from one of these prestigious universities, nevertheless they win this Cisco Academy competition, which is again kind of a testament to their personal skills in the end. So it's another confirmation about the fact that these guys, they know their stuff. They're like pretty good at what they do. Even although the whole Soul Typhoon story is kind of fuzzy. Remember, I called it like one of the biggest failures of the last year, due to the fact that we still don't know for
We
sure
still
what
don't know
is
today.
Soul.
Yeah.
And like remember that even that NSA advisory, they weren't talking about Soul Typhoon. They were talking about the um, the the Chinese threat actors, if you remember it. And so they avoided like giving like any specific names. But it does seem that it's like this conglomerate of companies and individuals such as competition winning individuals like the guys here, Yu Yang and Chu Daibing, and the companies that they own, they are pretty top notch. Just like as a personal observation, the Cisco Academy is super. It's been super popular everywhere around the world. Even in my faculty, the computer science faculty at the University of Polytechnic University of Bucharest, this was a big thing. I mean, it was
This
your
is how you
chance.
learned
It was your no, it
networking,
was
right? Yeah.
your chance to get a kind of kickstart in life, because people who pass through these courses, they automatically had something in their CVs that others don't, which is knowing how to work and operate Cisco equipment. And I think that one of the reasons why Cisco equipment has been so successful is their academy. The fact that they invested massively into these programs, partnering with universities to get students taught and to get them familiar with this special hardware that Cisco has been selling, which is of course also super good by itself, super stable, super reputable. But due to the fact that it relies on their own custom operating system, this Cisco iOS, it also requires some learning. It's not like you have a Linux or Windows administrator and they'll know how to you leverage and how to use this equipment. No, they won't. So going through these courses, it gives you a big advantage in your career, in your cyber, in your IT career, if you want. So
you end up with a job on a Salt Typhoon campaign. So
that, or you end up with other jobs like at the telcos, at the big ISPs, in governments, and so on, where you have to work with expensive Cisco equipment. And you know that these routers are nothing but cheap. They are expensive stuff. So I thought it was interesting, like the whole context of the story is interesting, and kudos to Dakota for publishing it, to our friend Andy Greenberg, who wrote a complimentary or like a kind of cover story on this for Wired. So do go out and read it. I thought it was interesting, and it's always interesting to get more details from about these indictments, which sometimes they don't have too many details. It's also when someone who is as knowledgeable as Dakota goes deep and he tries to find more. Like, let's push for more. Like, we want to know
there's
more.
a lot
Who
of
are these
nuggets
guys?
in there.
What did they do? What's their history? Like, how did they get here? Like, what did they do in the past? What competitions did they win? How did they get involved with Salt Typhoon, and so on and so on.
One
Very
other thing,
cool.
Cool work. And
Yeah, cool
I just
work.
wanted to, along the same lines, wanted to shout out to you guys for your security predictions for 2026. It was the first time I'd read a predictions document. That made me read it to the end, and it felt like a lot of thought went into it. I felt like a lot of our podcast themes went into it. So I'm sure you got your fingerprints on some of it. But I wanted to bring up your segment on AI and the dual use nature of it, and this conflict that's happening in the frontier labs around how we balance this one. And then I felt it had a very, very dark take on where AI takes society as a whole. Is that fair?
I guess so. It really depends on how. So first of all, like I am kind of shocked to see anybody be interested in a predictions post, right? Because you write these things.
I was shocked myself that I actually
you write these things
it.
for journalists, right? Like, you know that it's just, it's something that everybody demands because it's like the usual clickbait of like what's coming in 2026 and blah blah blah. And frankly, as in all of these things, it starts that way, right? With your marketing folks are like, hey, can we please get a predictions? Like, what do you think? And we sort of stopped for a second and we're like, look, either we contribute something kind of lame as you would expect, or we actually try to put something together. And in something like this, what I love is it really is each person that's cited on there just putting their 2 cents and what they actually think about and care about, with very little sort of like oversight or even attempting to bring things into cohesion. Like if you look at what I post about like my portion of the predictions and how much of it involves AI, and then you look at what Gabe puts in his version of things, I don't think the two necessarily reconcile, right? Like there are very different takes, and I think Gabe is kind of actually quite dark on his take on where AI is going and how things are looking and the bubble and those sorts of things, in a way that
was the best
I don't
part
necessarily.
Of it. Shout out to Gabe.
Yeah.
That was the best part of it.
Yeah, like I would, that's not necessarily, those aren't necessarily my views. I'm not saying they're incompatible. I sort of like, I'm digesting them and sort of looking at what I think, if I think that's actually going to happen. But at the same time, I think that this is important. I think if you are going to waste people's time with predictions, you may as well put your best foot forward and say, this is what we think it is, and not try to sugarcoat it.
Now let me throw out a line along the lines of not sugarcoating it, because this is a segment here of the predictions thing that I'm like, wow, this is actually solid predictions. I feel like someone is putting their leg out on a limb and making exactly so. there's a discussion there around the bubble that's coming and the cycle of money and this bubble that's going to come and it's going to pop. And then it ends, and I'll read an actual line from it. So when the capital tide goes out, the public story will be simple and hostile. AI took my job and ruined the internet, in quotes. And then the prediction is the actual big picture may be composed of macroeconomics, overcapacity, and misallocated capital, but the emotional truth will be that AI made jobs less secure, the information environment less trustworthy, and the daily experience of technology spammy and brittle. Like, those are strong, strong words on what the future looks like. A complete shitty synthetic future.
Right.
Is that something you share? Is that, Costin, does that feel like how you sense it happening?
Well, you know my opinion. We discussed it in the past, and I think the conflict between humans and silicon has never been at a higher level, and this conflict has accelerated at higher speeds than ever this year. And you can see it pretty much in any field, not just in computer security or IT, but it's present everywhere. And it is a kind of a race, although it should be more of a journey, right? It should be a team, like AI and humans together can achieve more. But unfortunately, the way it's evolving is more of a race, of more of a battle, like a kind of an arms race, if you want. And I won't say who turned this journey into an arms race, like, who are the people at the top, so no naming names if you want. But it feels like it's going a bit into the wrong direction, and I worry about people. I worry about those who will be left aside. Still, there's a lot of hope for what AI can bring, in terms of medicine, in terms of health and welfare. But at the same time, my opinion, and I think that a lot of people will be left behind. It will be like some tough times, and I think that even in this article, like these predictions that Sentinel-1 pushed out, I think there's a lot of warnings about the fact that, like this battle between humans and silicon doesn't seem to be getting better. It seems to be getting tougher and more intense every single day, every single week.
I don't know.
Look, to the point of what Gabe is saying, the slop part and the job part, those things are basically here.
They're here
right?
already,
Like
exactly.
we are fighting our way through slop and like a shitty internet experience on a daily basis, and like that's not a stretch. If anything, like this is something when Gabe was writing this piece and I'm giving him like early feedback, he's like, I think people's opinions of AI could become really bad, and I'm like, bro, you live in San Francisco. Let me let you in on a little secret. Like, it's already really bad. Like, nobody, like, there are few people who are genuinely excited about what's going on right now, as much as you're already kind of hating it. You're already like, Twitter is a bunch of like bots all day long. It doesn't feel worth it to post anything.
Dude, AI browsers are coming, which we won't be able to browse anymore.
Well,
They'll browse for you.
But that's the funny thing. That's actually the funny thing about this, right? An AI browser or any AI-based client is essentially an answer to the slop internet, right? Like, think about what we've basically created, right? The content is shit, and it's created by machines, and it lacks very little sort of intellectual caloric density. So it's a waste of human time to interact with. The only way you're going to sift through that is to have a machine that is sifting through the content on the other side and essentially summarizing and parsing it for you into something hopefully concise and calorically dense and actionable and valuable. So it kind of sucks, but it's sort of like a self-perpetuating thing where whether you like AI or not, the more that the internet gets filled with slop, the more that in order to honor your own time and actually make something good of it, you basically are going to have to rely on some kind of um, some kind of tool, AI-based tool, to sift through that shit and make it so you're not wasting your time. So it's sort of self-perpetuating in a sense. And frankly, our frustrations speak more to the lack of viable solutions to the problem than it does to the state of the internet, right? Like if we already had, if ChatGPT Atlas was so fucking prescient and amazing and streamlined in its prompts and just like made everything a fucking cinch, like you just like click on a thing and you go, oh my God, I just solved this problem. I didn't read any of this slop bullshit and I got what I needed in 45 seconds and I'm out. We would all be using it, right? Like the problem with these browsers is not that they're AI based. It's not that they're a testament to the end times. It's the fact that they're not good yet. They're just not good yet. If they had that shit down, we would all be singing their praises because, to be honest, the internet has been garbage for at least like 5 years. How much real content have you been interacting with in the past 5 years? How many real websites? How many times have you been like, damn, like I really want to go on this service and write this thing and read this thing and consume what somebody else is pushing? I don't remember in a long time. Right? Like so for a while I was trying to vibe code like a private site for like posting stuff and discussing with a private group of friends because I miss the feedback. I miss being able to go on Twitter and say, hey, I was working on this thing or I thought of this thing, and to have the replies be the Grug and Halvar and like brilliant human beings who would pop in there and say, you're a fucking idiot.
But that
You're
hasn't gone
forgetting
away.
this, that, and the
How
other.
has that gone
Yes,
away?
it has. It
With what? The
absolutely
death
has.
of Twitter?
Yeah, with the death of Twitter, but also like name any platform where you're gonna get that kind of interaction. Like if I tried posting on LinkedIn for a bit, I fucking hate like LinkedIn, but also like it is not a platform that encourages consumption of content in any way because it's just meant for like networking and trying to get a job. And like every once in a while, like I would post something and like I'd be fucking thrilled because like Joshua Sachs would like pipe up and say something awesome and it'd be like, oh, thank God. Like that was worth this whole thing. But for the most part, nobody's reading it. No one's interacting with it. You post something on
no one's
Twitter,
reading it.
most people are not reading. Like I now have thousands of people on LinkedIn. Nobody's reading this shit. Like
Did
you know,
Igor add you?
no, Igor is
Oh,
He
Igor
hasn't
has
accepted mine either.
not
Me
accepted.
neither.
Like,
I think
Igor,
he's
if you're
too-
listening, dude, I just
he's
want to
too
read
good
your
for
stuff.
us.
Is he real? Is he
maybe he's
real?
not.
He doesn't
he's
have
AI.
a photo.
He's an
Still
agent.
doesn't have a photo.
No, my bigger point is like, and I think this is maybe slipping into more of a discussion of like community failures and our lack of proper comms, right? Like most of the InfoSec community has moved to it moved to some private Slacks, but for the most part, it's just happening in
You're in
Signal
Signal
groups.
private groups, right?
Right. That Signal private groups are great for like the kind of comms that we need on a day-to-day basis. They are not really threaded forums
Long
with some
form
kind of
discussion,
persistence and ability to share. So like I think there's like something missing. You are missing almost like a private community of micro blogging and discussion, whatever, right? But it genuinely, it's not that I'm sad because I can't show off my fancy thoughts to my friends. It's more that you're lacking a genuine means of like feedback and interaction. And I think Twitter might still be working perhaps for the AI folks. I hear that there's a lot of healthy discussion and some unhealthy discussion between a lot of the frontier labs and the people that are researching stuff on Twitter. But when you look at those threads, half of it is obviously bots. The other half of it is like a bunch of weird, like racist, random young
Twitter
guys with a bunch of
experiences,
opinions, right? Like a bunch of unsolicited opinions. And for the most part, that does not make for it a community that you're interested in engaging with. It also does not leave the door open for intellectual curiosity. You're not going to go on there and say, oh, this is kind of interesting, but why doesn't it work this way? When you know that what you're going to get is a bunch of ignorant fucks just like slamming you and nobody with any kind of sense actually engaging in the discussion with you. And that's just not what we had before. So I don't know. I think this kind of morphed, but essentially going back to Gabe's point, like I do think AI has ruined the internet. It has also become an excuse for a lot of um, corporate bullshit decision making, like firing a bunch of people, even though we know that you're not getting the economic ROI of AI is not the reason that you're firing people at all. You're just trying to fuck with your earnings numbers, and you think we're all idiots. And you're turning around, you're hiring a bunch of people at the other end, and it's all just the kind of shit practices that we get from like this middle management, managerial class of like HR bullshit jobs, and people that justify a lot of things that would be unjustifiable if you had to put your name to them. But since you can hide behind bureaucracy and public markets and so on, who cares? It's all good, right? So eh, that opinion is already there. And I think what it takes us back to is actually the amazing optimism of the AI folks that they can erode the fabric of society on a variety of levels, and more importantly, erode the livelihood of a lot of people, and that their future is still going to be inevitable. That at no point are people going to take the Romanian route and walk out there and fucking hang Sam Altman, or Dario or any of these dudes, and then go burn a couple of data centers down and be like, fuck you.
It's coming. The burning of the data
Something
centers.
positive to say about LinkedIn. The Zip game is really nice. Like I've been playing Zip on LinkedIn. I don't know if you've been playing that.
Fuck is
I've
that?
seen it's been prompting me to play. It's
Yes,
probably because I'm
because I
connected
am
to
playing,
you.
right?
Yes. It's like some
That one
silly
is
game.
fun. It's
you
a
played with
silly
this thing?
game.
Oi.
It's a silly game, but it's fun.
I always look at those things as malware. Just staying on the AI front, OpenAI
We
issued
forgot something,
Yes.
if I may interrupt you, to mention the fact that we missed a fantastic story about Dakota, by the way. I think
Yes.
you know what I'm talking about,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes. He's been flagged by the Chinese government as one of its key antagonists, I want to call it. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah, anti-China chorus?
Choir. Yeah, the chorus, yeah.
Along with like people like Richard Baitlake. The list looks the typical folks who talk about China and stuff. But shout out to Dakota, shout out to his hair, who a fantastic photograph they use as well, which is amazing.
I believe it's he told us it's a wedding picture. So we're quite I think we're quite proud of.
OpenAI issued a document this week to explain how they think about safeguarding models in this dual use world where it can be used for offensive purposes and defensive purposes. And they gave a copy of the report, early copy of the report, to Axios, who positioned it as new models likely pose high cybersecurity risks. A little bit of a clickbait of a headline. But why? Why this piece of communication from OpenAI now that the models can and will develop zero-day remote exploits against even well-defended systems? Like, what's the purpose of this? Is this in response to some of the criticism around the Anthropic report around like this conflict between APT guys are using our thing and we're good enough to spot it, so it's not really useful? Why an OpenAI document now?
So I think there's legitimate things behind this, and then there's like bullshit things behind this. So let's try to address this on a couple of levels. First of all, I think the Anthropic report around this Chinese espionage, sort of automating through cloud code, blah, blah, that has kicked off some waves, especially considering that apparently Dario is supposed to go testify or answer questions in front of Congress next week. So I'll think about all these releases and all these discussions in terms of an impending congressional testimony, right? So that in itself, I think, is the motivating factor. I think at the same time, if you want to talk about sort of the more legitimate side of this, it has prompted discussions about to what extent the models are getting good at performing a lot of sort of autonomous actions related to pen testing and so on. And at the end of the day, there's just no denying that the things are getting good at it. That's about as far as the discussion I think stays genuine. Beyond that, right, it becomes a way to flag capabilities, whether you have them or not. It becomes a way to, once again, build up the specter of the great and mighty AI and how capable it is and world defining it is, which I
Some
think is
marketing
important.
here, right? Yeah.
Well, that is the battle that these companies are engaged in. OpenAI is in a tough spot right now with finances and figuring out sort of its own competing edge, right? They've done two kind of um, half-baked releases in the past like month or two. Like 5.1 came out of nowhere, and then last night they released 5.2. All of it, then you have like you have the max, supposed max, like long running models, which I've yet to see. But all of that is a clear response to Gemini 3 coming out and like really blowing the doors off the place and providing that in a sort of the discussions here economically are that Google is essentially allowing themselves to lose money in order to really expand their foothold. And before, it wasn't really considered much of a fight because 2.5 was just not. It didn't feel like a model that was really competing with GPT-5. It wasn't really competing with Opus 4.1. But it was ubiquitous, right? Like you had a Google, workspace account or some, a Gmail account, and you had some access to Gemini. Now, with Gemini 3 being like genuinely capable and Gemini CLI being genuinely capable, then the fact that you can get these things without paying that much money is a serious problem for both OpenAI and Anthropic. Anthropic comes out with Opus 4.5, which is important because before that they had Opus 4.1, which was very good, but it was so expensive for them to run that the limits they were putting on users were just not, like, it wasn't a good value. Like you would start using Opus and then you would have to get thrown back down to like an old Sonnet. And now that's not the case. 4.5 is more efficient, so you can have as much 4.5 as you want, which means that OpenAI is just lagging behind in adoption in ways that I'm sure that they're feeling, right? Like all of a sudden you have these competitors who are not also RANs. It's not ChatGPT is the de facto standard, and then these other people are just kind of there. You have things that Anthropic and Google are offering that OpenAI just doesn't really respond to in any meaningful way. We heard that there's like a code red at OpenAI, and there's a lot of discussions about what's happening with their new round of funding. They get 40 billion, but they didn't really get 40 billion, but they can get 20, but it's only if SoftBank raises 10, and like just a lot of like sort of not amazing sounding things as far as you can tell. So there's a lot of things sort of impelling and motivating this discussion forward. Now, am I upset about OpenAI suddenly discussing like an update to their preparedness framework and the idea of having like a council of cybersecurity practitioners involved? Not at all. I will be upset if it's full of, the usual kind of charlatans and like would-be random talking heads. Like, I think this is an opportunity to actually get some practitioners in there and to test the models and push them and start to have more realistic discussions, right? Like my issue with all of the safety bullshit is that it's almost all predicated around EA, around like sort of the existential threat type folks who want to talk about how we protect ourselves from the all-knowing, all-powerful AI. And that seldom involves actually protecting ourselves from the real, already present AI and the very likely AI capabilities that are coming. So I'm all for having those conversations. And I really hope that this becomes like a genuine engagement and like getting some actual practitioners involved in this and then having discussions, because frankly, if all we've got here is guardrails against, whatever bullshit, or nothing, right? Like, I don't really know. It's like guardrails, trust and safety guardrails, or nothing. Like, we're fucked. because guardrails don't work. They just don't. Like, that's really not it. And the more that you're trying to build the obvious economic value that's right across the way from us, which is autonomous, complex computer engineering capabilities, building things, interacting with things, whatever, the more these things are going to be problematic for us as like attacker capabilities, period. So just relying on, can we tell the thing to not build a bomb and not somehow allow you to make chemical weapons, which are both idiotic things to worry about, because both of those have logistical, physical requirements and problems, right? Like, if the three of us decide that we're starting a chemical weapons program, then that's a wonderful wish we've all decided to embark on together. But that doesn't suddenly equip us to create chemical weapons. We don't suddenly have centrifuges to make nuclear bombs in our houses. Like, that's not how this shit works. You know what does work that way? Cyber capabilities. So let's fucking stop with these bullshit scarecrows and actually have a discussion and test some stuff and decide how we want to go about this.
OpenAI's internal tests, according to the Axios reporting, OpenAI's internal tests show that recent models are improving so quickly on cybersecurity exercises, like things like capture the flag benchmarks, that there's a suggestion that future models could reach these high-risk levels. I mentioned here our friend of the Wall Street Journal, Bob McMillan, wrote a piece this week on a research paper that proved that AI agents were becoming dangerously close to the skill and quality of human pen testers in a way that suggests, I don't want to say replacements. Costin, is there a worry at all about this dual use conversation around AI?
I think there's for sure there's a worry. I'm just thinking, what is the proper framework to talk about it? Is it like the Congress? I mean, perhaps I don't know. That's not the right framework. Perhaps I don't know. Trump should do some kind of an AI mitigations risks conference where he would invite all the top people, not just Dario, but like pretty much everyone else. I can't like possibly avoid not thinking about this story, which again has perhaps no connection whatsoever with the recent case. But I remember, like back in the days, Al Qaeda was actually becoming so fond of Toyota cars that they were like just selling everything and using those money just to buy more Toyota cars. If you remember that story, they were like buying these Toyota minivans. They were like just indestructible and they were like super easy to fix. And I remember the CEO of another company around the same time, he said, "Oh, our cars are also like really good, so there's a risk that terrorists might start using them as well." And again, no connection with the current story, but I do think that probably there should be another higher framework to discuss, not just with Dario, but like with pretty much all the other brands that the terrorists could use, and have some honest discussions about the possibilities and the threats and what kind of measures be put into place. To be honest, I'm not worried at all about people chatting with ChatGPTs. However, agents, they fall into a completely different category. It's like the fission bomb and the fusion bomb. It's like when people like Ulam and Teller, they came up with this idea. For the fission bombs, they're not enough. Like, we need to work out something bigger, and they came up with the idea of the fission bomb. And then like all the others, basically the people from the Manhattan Project were like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, this is not what we want. This is not what we wanted in the first place, because this is like just getting out of control. And unfortunately, those bombs were developed anyways, and now you can say the world is on the brink of extinction, or at least there are capabilities into place which allow for that. to happen. And I think that at some point someone will come with the idea, yeah, we need to put AI in charge of the military. We need to develop AI weapons. We need to put AI on drones. We need Anduril++. We need Palantir++. And at some point someone will say, yeah, we need to put all our nuclear arsenal in the hands of AI. And let's call it, I don't know, Skynet or whatever. And then one day, it's Judgment Day. And it's funny how things happen and how the history repeats.
Oh, this guy is going too dark a little bit. Just let's update a couple of quick stories before we end the show. I want to update two things.
I'm super positive and super optimistic. And the reason is that actually I just noticed, I don't know if you guys noticed it as well, that ChatGPT 5.2 dropped.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. Last night.
Pop up in my thing. Oh, okay.
It was 5.1 and now today is 5.2. And it's better than 5.1. Like 5.1, well, 5.0 was good. It was no longer woke like we discussed it in the past. It would answer questions. And then something happened with 5.1 that it produced some not so good results, at least for me, when I tried to do some deep research with that. And I can't wait to test 5.2, see how it goes.
Bring back 01. Nothing compares to 01.
Dude, I miss 01. I loved 01.
01 was my first foray into that kind of world. Let's update two quick stories. Episode 54, way back, we talked about this no-name 057-16. Remember, Costin, with this Europol had put a bunch of pictures on a wanted list that included this young lady that we had this conversation around. Turns out, I think, help me understand if this is real, if it's the same person, but this Victoria Dubranova was indicted. So it appears that she was arrested and extradited to the US or sometime this year, and it's going through our court system. This was the one that this is the one that is.
I think that Ryan has some internet issues again. It doesn't matter. Like we're on to this story as well. And by the way, these guys, no name 05716. Nobody knows for sure where the names come from. They are super active, especially targeting countries in Europe, NATO, that kind of things, mostly DDoS. Shout outs to our friend Martin, who is tracking them, I think, on a regular basis. And it's a pretty interesting topic to look into, by the way. We need, I think, more people looking into this particular threat actor. I thought that this release from the Justice Department is pretty interesting. In particular, what they call Cyber Army of Russia Reborn, which is again another one of these fronts for the Russian government associated activities. And it's interesting to see this person that we talked about before getting indicted in this Justice Department release. Welcome back, Ryan.
This was the weird one where they were described as hacktivists and cyber criminals, but I think Google way back had already connected them with some nation-state type activity, and I'm a little confused. What is it? Is it cybercrime? Is it hacktivism? Are they working for GRU? Like, why are we all over the place with the attribution?
And I think it's also a bit confusing, the fact that she was indicted for supporting these groups. And what does it mean? Like, at least if you look there in the indictment, it talks about her giving them money. Okay, so supporting these operations financially. Like I can't answer your question directly. I think it is maybe a bit confusing, like putting all these things into one bucket for sure. Yes, and I did see there were like a number of posts on X where people were discussing, hey, I told you so, that these guys were not really hacktivists. In reality, I think nowadays the number of true hacktivists that are just hacktivists without any government connections, especially when it comes to Russia, is close to that, zero.
Yeah, I agree.
In reality, all kind of hacktivist activity is pretty well connected to the Russian government in one way or another, either like
Not only in Russia,
financially.
though, anywhere else that they have these.
Yes, if you say so. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about these hacktivist groups like the Sparrows or Lab Duktegan. I don't know.
Well,
We
I
don't want to
know either. I'm
speculate.
just-
I
And
know.
we don't fact check, right?
We do not.
yeah, but you
thankfully.
just said it was 0.
In Russia. In Russia.
Juanito,
there
you got
are
it?
there are some hacktivist groups which I think they are like hacktivist groups. That is people getting together and doing things. One interesting example would be these Belarusian cyber partisans. I can't tell you for sure if they're like connected to the government, but for sure I know that they appear different from other things in a way. So if they are connected to the government, which government would they be connected to? Because it does seem that they even like their spokesperson, if I remember correctly, she is Belarusian. So there is some real hacktivist activity, at least in this one example. But with the Russian hacktivist groups, I mean, the vast majority are either connected to the government sponsored, associated with some kind of institute, either financed through some presidential grant program or decree, and so on and so on.
We are at the 2-hour mark, and I want to touch on one last story before we get to our shout-outs. Palo Alto Unit 42 put out a report on a Hamas-affiliated group called Ashen Lepus using a new malware called Hashtag to target global government diplomatic institutions for espionage in places like Oman, Morocco, Egypt, Jordan, Palestinian Authority. Is that something we should all be paying attention to? Anything we learned there, Costin, Juanito?
Well, what's a lepus, by the way, or lepus? What's that?
I don't know. Lepus. Ashen Lepus.
It's a type
is
of
it?
hair, I guess.
Hair.
Like a kind of mammal that looks like a rabbit, according to Google. I don't know.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, we used to call them worthy, or like sometimes where the I is a 1, like written as a with a 1.
This group?
This group. I mean, they've been around for some time. It's depending on whom you ask. Yeah, associated with the Hamas. I mean, like historically, the Muslim Brotherhood has always been somehow connected with these operations. Like if we go back to the things like Desert Falcons. That we talked about back, 2015, right? There's been a lot of evolution with these groups, in particular Hamas-affiliated groups. And of course, since October 7, like the activity with these Hamas-affiliated groups has greatly been hindered by the war in Gaza, obviously. And a lot of them had their headquarters bombed, their servers bombed, their tunnels bombed, their everything bombed. So there hasn't been much visible blogging from security companies on Hamas-affiliated activity. But nevertheless, I mean, there is still activity going on, and I think some of that is no longer happening in Gaza. But these are like the operators have long fled Gaza, and now they come out of other locations like Qatar, for instance. I haven't looked at the blog in detail, but I did see there's like IOCs, there's hashes in there, there's CNCs. So there's a lot of information. So yeah, kudos to Palo Alto Unit 42 for publishing this. And it does seem there's a lot of interesting information in this blog to go through.
Yeah, I mean, we never get visibility into this type of things. Well, not never, but we rarely get this kind of visibility. Juanito, is this something that stays on your radar? This Ashen Lupus. Costin, what is it known as? Give me some other names.
Worty.
WIRTE.
WOIRTE. I don't remember.
WIRTE.
WIRT. Got it.
We've been seeing stuff from WIRTE, I think as early as maybe 2018. And they've never been like a super over the top like capability. They're just one of those that like won't stop, right? Yeah. Like during the conflict, like they were doing things, they were fucking things up, but it was never like a big deal. It wasn't like an amazing capability, but they're there and they're chipping away and they're sort of doing their thing. And clearly they haven't been bombed to Kingdom Come, so who knows where the fuck they're hiding. Look, it's good to keep track of all these groups. It's good to keep them in mind. They are nuisances. They are opportunistic nuisances in a lot of ways. And which is to say that you never really lose your mind about them as if like they're gonna be the next coming of Armageddon, but you want to keep an eye on them because when they do latch onto something, you know they're not going to have the restraint not to make use of it.
Right.
One and two, this is the kind of shit where um you know that they're not very good, but don't make the mistake of thinking that that means they'll never be good, right? Like that's what we learned from the North Koreans, right? You could make fun of them, you could sort of see them as some random sort of silly irrational actor, and then if you stop paying attention to them, they may suddenly take a big upswing in capability and really sort of sock you in the mouth. So you never stop paying attention to groups like this. You also just keep them in perspective.
Let's close the show with some shout outs. We're at the 2 hour mark. Costin, you want to start?
I mean, I dropped some names during the show. So like from my side, of course, I think it's important to say that props and shout outs to all the brave people who are, speaking for justice in Romania and around the world. I think this is important. And corruption is like a really bad thing, dirty thing. And there's a lot of courageous people out there who are just not just sitting, but doing something about it. And especially when it's cold outside, to go out there to protest for what you think is right. This is important. Of course, it's important also at the same time to keep in mind on how to protect yourself from a cybersecurity point of view. And there's been a lot of discussions, I think, recently about people with Graphene OS, and I think there's a lot of smear campaigns against Graphene OS, including what looks like a coordinated disinformation against Graphene OS. Don't believe that shit. Graphene OS is a super solid thing. I use it myself. A lot of people use it as well. And
let's spend a second here for a second, if you don't mind. Graphene OS, I think they put out a tweet announcing they will migrate from OVH cloud infrastructure due to a new French law. You mentioned this kind of misinformation. There seems to be something happening around Graphene OS movements as it relates to this France thing. Can you give me a little wrap up on what that is?
Sure. There were a number of publications in France in 2 magazines, which are trying to convey the idea that this is the favorite tool of criminals, and how criminals avoid justice through the use of Graphene OS, which is total bullshit. We know that criminals don't use Graphene OS. Criminals use no-name Android phones from China with WhatsApp, which is probably for their purpose is much more difficult to track. If you're like a Graphene OS user, we just use Graphene OS, you're like much easier to track by a government if you want, because simply it connects to the Graphene OS update server, so you automatically know who in your country is having a Graphene OS phone, unless they also VPN or do some other things. And I think that these articles were part of coordinated campaign, because in parallel someone showed up on X, which has a profile that looks like your typical criminal with cryptocurrencies and expensive watches and hordes of cash and all. And they're like, oh, Graphene OS failed me. I got this summon. And like, this looks such a fake thingy, in the sense that it's just trying to push this idea that criminals use Graphene OS. And to me, with my spider senses, this is a coordinated campaign to push the idea that criminals use Graphene OS so that someone can do something about Graphene OS in the context of chat control and banning of VPNs in Europe and age verifications and other things. You can see that this is part of a trend, and the direction where this is going is not very bright. So this is why I said that don't fall for these things. Graphene OS is a solid thing. You have nothing to worry about if you run it correctly. And in reality, criminals don't use Graphene OS. They use WhatsApp and no name Chinese phones.
There's part of a building narrative that France is an anti-privacy. France is becoming very antagonistic to privacy. They were a supporter of the proposed EU chat control legislation. They had the Pavel Durov arrest that was, built up in the world that it was anti-free speech. This story about these guys, Graphene, pulling out because of this French cloud provider and France's attitude towards these things, that's a building narrative. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's hard to say if it's fair or not. But if you look at what's happened, you can understand why they have this perception and why they're going into this direction. Like you were saying, Pavel Durov got arrested in France for allegedly not cooperating in shutting down criminal groups on Telegram or giving them access, right? He later disclosed some meetings with intelligence officials which asked for his support to shut down some groups related to elections and so on and so on. And so you can read about all that either in his blog or in his interviews on YouTube. And if you ask me, I can't tell you for sure what's going on there. But one thing is obvious to anyone at the moment is that in the European Union, there's a strong push for more government control of technology, and with pushing ideas such as banning encryption is bad, only criminals use encryption. We need to scan your chats, we need to know what you are talking about, we need to be aware so that we can protect your kids. Think of the kids. It's just like this scene from Lord of the Rings, the Desolation of Smaug, when they're like think of the kids. Yeah, sure. You can see the trend and you can smell the direction the discussions are going.
I don't want to stretch the podcast
course.
at all, but is there any justification for the push for chat control? Is there any tiny bit of, there is a case to be made in this little corner? I'm just trying to play devil's advocate.
I mean, there's no. There's no. I want to phrase this in a politically correct way to Hollywood, because I love Hollywood. But if you look who is behind chat control and who's involved in this, it's like Hollywood people. And where else are Hollywood people involved? If you remember, we discussed it a few episodes.
NSO?
Oh, NSO. So interesting, and an interesting coincidence, with this Hollywood push. And why would you need Hollywood? Because obviously it's a powerful machine, and these people, famous people like Ashton, is it Ashton Kushner? Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. Kushner.
Are you thinking about Ashton Kutcher or
Kutcher? Kutcher, yeah.
Kutcher, I apologize.
It's confusing him with the
Kuchner, Jared Kuchner.
Jared Kuchner.
Kuchner.
Jesus Christ, guys.
No, the different guys. No connection. Nevertheless, it's weird to see all this Hollywood push, and there are people who are saying that the reason for all these check-ins is purely mercantile. It's commercial because they have other things they want to sell, like NSO. So you want to implement chat control, there's two ways. Either it goes on and it has to be implemented, and there'll be technologies that these guys, that companies that are lobbying these guys for, or if not, if it fails, no worries, there'll be NSO. There'll always be NSO. So there's some people saying that there is a financial reason behind these pushes. Now, if you're saying if there's a legitimate reason, I personally doubt it, because the issue to catch all these guys, the bad guys, being involved in all this child related offenses, it's not an issue of access, of technological access to devices. It's an issue of volume, and the fact that even I remember back in the days, law enforcement officers that were coming to our conferences, they were saying I said, I can give you more. And they're like, no, thank you. Do you know how many cases we have on our office? I have 1 million 1 million files, 1 million different files related to this, and I just don't have enough time to go through all of them. So, like, do you need more criminals to catch? No, they have like enough criminals to catch. So the saying that you don't have the technical means to catch more, it's
Doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense to me at all.
Juanito, finally, please close the show. You got a shout out or two?
I've got some small shout outs. I mean, first of all, shout out to you, Ryan and Trisha. Congratulations on your wedding anniversary. You two have both of you have been the motivating force behind getting this podcast together and delivered every week and now
the
sponsored
sponsorship
and
sales,
everything.
yeah.
So shout out to you both. It's amazing to kind of watch you guys do your thing up until this point, and how patient Trisha is watching you record this right now.
How many years? How many years?
32.
32.
Jesus,
Congrats.
Costin
your French. I didn't.
Well done.
No, I'll say it in French. Yeah.
So, amazing stuff there, guys. Beyond that, very small things. Echo Party Miami is actually happening. It's coming. Pretty excited about it. CFP is open right now. And Reverse in Orlando is also up. The tickets are still available. I need to go buy my ticket. So, of course, I'm reminding everybody else to go get it while you still can.
And I saw a reminder from Jordan that the date for booking your room under the room block in that Orlando resort is fast coming up. Reverse, I went to the first one last year. Amazing conference with the right set of people and the right group of people. Orlando that time of the year is also very nice weather too. So
do you
shout
get
out to
see
those guys.
Missile launches?
You can if it's possible.
You might. Huh?
If
you
might.
might.
You remember we
get
saw
like
one in Melbourne,
we saw
right?
One.
Yeah,
correct.
It'll take a bit of a drive, right?
We were together in Melbourne when we saw that one. From my side, some quick shout-outs. I saw a story from Thinks Canary, who are joining our show as a sponsor soon. Thinks announced that the organization running the South African Computer Olympiad ran out of money and was shutting it down entirely. So they bought the Olympiad from the folks in South Africa. They hired the woman who's running it, and the Olympiad will run as normal in 2026. Hopefully we will make it even better. That was the announcement from Thinks Canary. So shout out to those guys for saving that. That Computer Olympiad thing is what gets a lot of kids involved in cybersecurity, in computers, in technology, and that was a nice move. There's an article I linked to from IT Web that documents that. And then lastly, Will Thomas from Team Cymru appeared on a podcast for Info Security Magazine. At the end of it, he dropped a big shout out to the Three Body Problem. It's his #1 podcast. I might add that the retort was, "Oh my God, they swear too much." But here we are. Here we are. Shout out to Will. Shout out to the folks at Info Security Magazine and some of the journalists there who are also mentioning on LinkedIn that they're big listeners to the show. So we do have a handful of listeners hanging out. Anything else, guys?
And the cursing will continue until IOCs improve.
That's the lasting thought will be. The swearing will continue until the IOCs improve. Put that on a t-shirt and put it in Costin's name. That's our show for this week, folks. We'll catch you next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Ciao, bye.
This episode of the Three Body Problem is sponsored by ThreatLocker. Let's be real. Most cybersecurity tools only act after the damage is done. Detection is reactive. Prevention is what actually changes the game. That's where ThreatLocker comes in. Instead of chasing threats, ThreatLocker helps organizations stop them at the source before they ever run. Only approved applications, scripts, and executables are allowed. Everything else, denied by default. It's zero trust made practical and scalable for modern environments. Learn more at threatlocker.com/threebodyproblem and see how default deny can finally give you real control over your environment.